Well, we've had many struggles going on in this country over the past couple hundred years, and we face none like today. I mean, hell, even back during the Revolutionary War, when the country was still divided, things still weren't as sharply divided, and the country wasn't quite as bitter towards one another as it is today. But there was a difference way back in the 1930s, and it was a coalition. A coalition between any and all ostracized or parties that were left out, basically. Because the one thing that the elites fear above all else is working class unity. So understand something here, people. It doesn't matter where you fall in the political landscape, and politics is a landscape, it's not a spectrum compared to what many people are saying. Like, for instance, myself, I actually qualify as a social libertarian. So I'm actually on the left, more in the libertarian part of the y-axis of that quadrant, right? I forget the name of that study or that graph, whatever it's called, but it's really useful in understanding how politics actually is laid out. Where we see our leadership and where we see a lot of voters, unfortunately, drifting is in the upper right, the authoritarian right. And that, of course, is fascism. Now, if you take fascism and you try to get it in the other direction, you're simply changing the cover, right? It's still authoritarian, but you're doing it under the guise of, oh, well, I'm just going to be doing, what I do for the people, because that's what the people want. And they get everybody to believe them and worship them and everything. Hence, the Kim dynasty in North Korea. So it's still authoritarianism. It's just labeled as socialism or communism in the 20th century and even through today. But it has nothing to do with that. Those regimes, like under Mao, under Kim, under Pol Pot, all those people, it had nothing to do with left-wing ideology. Nothing at all. And the left wing, let's get it straight here. The left-wing ideology is not a spectrum. It's broken up into 4 quadrants, okay? So the left, the upper left quadrant is the authoritarian left. That's what we typically associate with communism. And then you go to the upper right, that's authoritarian fascism, okay? That's capitalism taken to the point of using big, strong militaristic institutions to protect profits. That's kind of where we are now. We're not as far as Nazi Germany. We're not quite as far as, what's a good example? You might say it's not quite as strong as Stalin in the Soviet Union, because let's face it, if you really understand the politics of the world, Stalin had nothing to do with left-wing ideology either. The left-wing ideology in Russia actually came before him, and he took over when Vladimir Lenin died of an aneurysm. And he installed a kind of fascism that suited his goals. It had nothing to do with helping the Russian people. It had everything to do with accumulating power for himself. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. What we need in this country is a coalition of all people from all over the landscape, okay? We need people who are, socialists, people who are progressives, people who are communists, people who maybe want like a labor party of some kind. Libertarians would help too, especially social libertarians like myself. Economic libertarians, good luck. But, the economic libertarians do still believe in, social causes and things like that. So they can still be useful allies up to a point. Democrats and Republicans, some of them may be willing to form this coalition, but they would have to be so disenfranchised with their parties that they would see no other choice. And what else we got? We got, of course, the DSA. And then you get the Greens. Now, I'm actually formally a member of the Green Party, but I will admit, it is unfortunate that a lot of them can actually be rather stuck up at times. But understand, they want a lot of the same things we do. It's just that sometimes they can rub people the wrong way and people get the wrong impression about them. So give them a chance, hear them out. and don't try to be so judgmental. You can still win people like that over. They can still win you over if you listen, you know. And that's what this is really all about. This is all about building working class unity. That's what corporations and the rich fear. No matter what color our skin, no matter what our genders are, no matter what our backgrounds are, no matter what our talents, no matter what our language is, anything like that, that's all peanuts compared to what they have in store for the rest of us, which is global subjugation to their profit-driven system. Because we basically exist in their eyes just to give them everything that their single-track minds can put into it. Be it money, be it property, be it power, whatever. They just want. And they see that the needs of other people, that isn't even on their radar. They don't even consider what the people need. They don't care what the people need. So really, what am I getting at here? I had it on my mind before I picked this phone up. Oh yeah, that's right. Housing first. Now, of course, some of you may know who Rebecca Parson is. She's a socialist candidate in Washington State, running in Washington's 6th Congressional District. If you haven't heard of her and you live in that area, please look her up. She lives in the Tacoma area. And those of you who may disagree with her, don't try anything stupid. But if you want to vote for her, please look her up. Rebecca Parson, okay? She's an amazing candidate, amazing person. She has a small business, and believe it or not, if you look up a Fox News interview that she did once, she actually pays $30 an hour at her business. And she says she wants to make the $30 an hour minimum wage the national minimum wage. Unfortunately, with the Supreme Court, we may be faced with the potential overturning of the minimum wage, which would put us in a situation a lot like Sweden. Because Sweden is a very libertarian-oriented country, and it has no minimum wage. What it does have is working class solidarity, and they have a 67% unionization rate. 67%. We have closer to like 7 or 8%. Now take neighboring Finland. They have up to 75%. And it's around 65% in Norway. 53% in Denmark. What does that tell you? They have some of the highest standard of living in all of Europe. And they're like, well, you know, that's Europe. That's not America, small country. That's not the point. Now, what about housing again? Well, you go to Finland. Finland has a program called Housing First. And essentially what they do is they basically give everyone in Finland a roof over their head. By default, that's the very first thing that's required in Finland. You have a roof over your head. Then you can get everything else you want done. Because if you don't have that roof over your head, if you're just like out there in the cold and they're like, hey, you on the street who's like shaking and scraggly looking and have rags on, you can go be a millionaire. No. They understand that's not true. And ultimately, most people may not even have those same goals. Most people do have their own goals, but they just want the basics, you know, the basic platform to be lifted up and build their own life to whatever they want. So what does that mean when it comes to Housing First? Well, in Housing First, we're talking about, you know, apartments or condos. We're talking about mobile homes or townhomes. We're talking about studios, you know, just that kind of stuff, just to get people started. But in addition, what's needed is we need to ban and somehow wrestle away all the major residential properties from these equity firms, these big banks, companies like that, right? Because all that's doing is making living too damn expensive for everybody in the country. Nobody's going to live in them. It's just meant for a way to find a rich tenant who will pay the raising price every time so that these equity firms can make more money. That's it. It's all it's about. It's just about money. Well, housing is a fundamental need of all people. Shelter from the elements, security, safety, those are human needs. And this is what Rebecca Parson and Finland realized. So it's also actually cheaper to do it this way. How is that, you may ask? Because if you leave it up to a market-based system with regards to basic housing, well, the prices are just going to keep going up and up and up and up and up and up. And employers and their leases come into play here, and the leases are going to get so expensive that employers won't be able to hire anybody. So they're just going to automate and replace the machines. It's going to leave even more people behind. And then less people can afford to have a home or a roof over their head. And that causes a lot of problems. So now you got even more people living on the street, right? And they're like, well, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, as most people now know, that's just a bunch of baloney. And anyway, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps originally was meant as a metaphor for impossible feats of strength. Okay? Impossible feats of strength. Let that sink in for a moment. I mean, let's take a look at something here, okay? All right. You see all that? Look at these nice homes. Do you honestly think the average person can afford something like that today? No, they can't. But would they like to? Of course they would. Most people would. But you can't do that as long as you have a market-based system that only favors the rich. And you certainly can't do it when you have equity firms buying up property left and right, jacking up prices all the way around. Sorry for the noise. That's a garbage truck. Good folks doing their jobs there. These people, man, these garbage folks, they work hard. Riding around in that heat. Can you imagine what their living conditions might be? They get paid shit. They might live in some crappy rundown apartment where the superintendent doesn't want to put in the money to fix things. Does that sound like a good situation? I don't think so. So Housing First, what does that do? Aside from putting a roof over one's head, it puts caps on the price, okay? One of the ways to do this is we can take a lesson from Vienna, Austria, and we can have more tenant-owned apartment complexes. And what this will do is it means that when you move into an apartment or a townhome, whatever the case may be, you're basically contributing financially every month to the public system that runs that entire complex. You're not paying some greedy landlord who just wants to line their pockets to afford whatever luxury lifestyle they might want. So essentially, trying to do something like this, it saves money. Let me say that again. It saves money. Because if you leave people out in the cold like this, number one, police find them, they lock them up. It's more taxpayer money to feed them and house them and clothe them, bathe them, give them health care in prisons and all that stuff. And a lot of people complain about that. Like, wow, we're spending all this money on prisoners, man. They're just scum of the earth and all this crazy talk, right? You know, again, go to Finland, and look at what their prisons are like. They're fucking country clubs or college campuses compared to what we have. And it works. It absolutely works. They have one of the lowest repeat offense rates in the world because they treat their prisoners like human beings. Now, we treat our prisoners like feces, man. We wipe them with paper towels off our ass and we flush them down the toilet. That's how we treat our prisoners. Nobody likes being treated like that. More often than not, it's somebody for some weed offense who didn't do anything wrong otherwise, right? Now, what would have happened if this person had had a roof over their head? What would have happened if it had been at a price that they could afford with a living wage? Imagine everything else they could have accomplished. Everything else. Especially with a UBI. I mean, people say, oh, that's crazy talk. Is it really? Look at Alaska. Alaska has a UBI. About $1,000 or something. Maybe it's like $550 or something like that. Anybody from Alaska can probably, let me know in the comments. But they have an annual dividend. All right. It's like it comes with their tax return or something. That they nationalize their oil and their mineral deposits in that state. And that's how they do it. Isn't that funny? Like, we try to stop every country like Iran, like Venezuela, from nationalizing their oil so we can get our greedy hands on it. But when it comes to our own state of Alaska, how come Alaska doesn't need some freedom? I'm telling you, man. But Housing First is definitely something we should look into. Having a roof over one's head at a very affordable price, no more than 20 to 25% of one's income, which means it would have to be on a sliding scale, because incomes are going to be different every month. Usually, if you're in business for yourself, for example, you can't force people to give you a certain quota every month. It just doesn't work that way. So it has to be on a sliding scale. As far as wages are concerned, we need strong unions. We need more worker co-ops to balance the power of these corporations who have monopolized virtually every aspect of the economy. Because if we want to have more bargaining power and more strength with unions, you've got to have the option of more worker co-ops to go to for employment, so that it's more democratic in the economy. That translates into more political power. And I guarantee you, that would definitely manifest in a way that would be ultra pleasing to all people living in this country. You know, it minimizes crime, which means the police would have to refocus on what they do. It would actually give us a chance to redesign what policing really is in this country. Originally, it started with slave patrols. So imagine what we can do by just this one thing alone, by housing first. Think about it for a while, guys. This is really important. Things are getting to a point now where nobody can really afford to live anymore. And if we don't do something soon, things can get really bad. I remember in the last video, my warning to Congress. This is another warning. Housing first is a great idea. It's something to consider. It's something that actually needed to be done a long time ago. Putting a roof over people's head is the humane thing to do. It's the economically responsible thing to do. And it's just, for some people on the right, it's the Christian thing to do. That's right. Anyway, I love making these new videos for you guys. I kind of like this new style. Let me know what you think in the comments if you think I should continue doing my videos like this. Because I've been sitting in my little computer room at home with that backdrop, and the way the lighting is in that room is just absolutely terrible. So let me know what you think. I'll make another one for you guys soon. Peace out.